Welcome to Native Bidaské, Native News Online's weekly spotlight on the people making news and leading change in Indian country.
Welcome to another episode of Native Bidaské. I'm Levi Rickert, your host, editor of Native News Online. We have a very special guest, Sarah Eaglehart. She's a friend of mine. I've known her for many years. Sarah, welcome back to Native Bidaské. How are you today?
I'm great. Great to be with you, Levi.
And I have to tell you, last time you were on, we got so many plays, and I said to Kristen, our producer, we got to bring her back. And so you have a new project that you're involved with. You're a two-time Emmy Award-winning social justice storyteller, entrepreneur, and philanthropic leader. So today we're going to discuss your latest project, a short sci-fi film called Butterflies that launched Matter in Space. Tell us about Matter in Space, first of all.
So Matter in Space is an AI company that is newer. It's a newer business that's coming out in the world. And I was invited to be a part of this short film from my friends at Get Lifted, and they're part of John Legend's company, his agent actually. So the producers behind the film I've known for several years. Just as a reminder, they were also a part of Crow the Legend. So the virtual reality project that I was a part of as well, that won Best or Outstanding Interactive Media Emmy back in 2019.
Yeah, and congratulations again on that. Does John Legend have kind of a fondness in his heart for Native projects?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that what's interesting is that I think that he's definitely a social justice warrior in a lot of ways. So always looking for ways to talk about the earth and saving the earth or sharing wisdom in new ways. And I just don't think that indigenous wisdom or indigenous storytelling, is still on the newer side. So it's really nice to be able to integrate that into social justice. And so that's really a part of, I think, being on the early side of sharing how we can use AI and science for climate change. And that's what I really like about it.
Yeah. And AI is fascinating. It scares a lot of people. We know that. Should we be scared in Indian country, or how should we deal with it?
I have a lot of conversations with different folks about AI I was recently at the Television Academy, and I was on a panel for climate change with Good Energy Stories, who are all about including climate stories in TV and film. And, so we're all talking about AI. I think everybody agrees on one part, that we don't want, when it comes to certain aspects of filmmaking and storytelling, like there should definitely be limits on AI. I think that when we're looking at saving the earth, there definitely should be limits on how the technology is developed. But I also think that we are on the early side of AI and how it's beginning to be developed. And I think the technology is just changing and changing. And I'm more worried about what happens if we're not involved, if tribal nations are not involved in the process, because it's here. It's only going to get bigger and bigger. So for me, it's really important to be a part of, how it's developing now.
And so that's kind of like getting out in front of it, and it is with us. We see it. Just if you have a cell phone and you're texting and the words pop up, that's really AI in action, and people don't always realize that. Tell us about the overall project itself, Butterflies. That film was sensational, and we'll tell viewers how they can see it. But tell us about the making of Butterflies.
Yeah, so this story really came as we actually worked on it a year ago. So it was actually a project that was about a year and a half in the making, and it was filmed in South Dakota and California. So filmed in Chasapa, like Rapid City, and on Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. And my Kevin Killer, my partner as well, was an associate producer on the film. And so it's really a short film about Takota experiencing climate change as a child and looking at how he can use AI and science to, save the butterflies. There's a problem with the butterflies. And so he meets a young girl from Mexico, and they start talking about and sharing knowledge with each other. And so they come up with this idea of how do we utilize plants to save the butterflies, the monarch butterfly. So it's really a beautiful story of like coming of age, because you see them when they get older, and then you see them that they actually save the butterflies in this short film, and very beautiful. I think one of the things that I really loved about it is it's showing our young Native people as being scientists, and as being being a part of the solution, that they're able to create that solution and utilize knowledge. And so I think that's so important, because when I was growing up, I didn't know anybody from Mexico. I didn't really know anybody from, out of state too much, so I just think that today is different than, when we were growing up. And I think about how do we utilize technology to help us with some of the things that we're all worried about, and that all the effects of climate change we're beginning to see now. And so it's just important to address it.
Yeah, and I like that film, and it's a short film. And I told Chris and our producer, I said, man, I wish that was a full feature film, because it was so well done. But there's a part in there I really liked, and it has to do with the agricultural part of it. And you mentioned the farming part, and so many can learn from indigenous ways of planting and farming. Can you talk about this a little bit?
I'm not a farmer, but I did grow up. My grandma on the reservation, she had a garden. And so we grew up gardening with her in the backyard. And we grew up, with strawberries and all the different vegetables that we actually harvested from our backyard and my grandma's garden. So I think about that. And, today there's not much access around, farming or farmers markets on reservations, although there can be. And I do know a lot of different groups out there, indigenous groups, that want to have farmers markets. So I just think it's important for us to be involved and also see that as a possibility. I know that there's interest in farmers markets, because one of the foundations that I co-founded, Return to the Heart Foundation, I know gets a lot of different requests for that type of like building farmers markets and knowledge. So I love that we see children like working on growing plants. And to be honest, I don't have a green thumb. I really wish I did, but I don't, and I travel too much. So yeah, I'm not really much of a farmer, Levi.
Well, I put in tomato plants every year, and I just love. I live in Michigan, and so we do have limited time you can grow, but I usually get about 8 to maybe 10 weeks worth of tomatoes that are so different from the ones you buy in the store on a normal basis, which is so hard. They're almost like balls that can bounce. But those tomatoes that I grow, they're fresh, they're juicy, they're watery, and it's just like, yeah. And
I really wish I had a green thumb. I tried during COVID, and I didn't get anything. And I don't know why. I think I'm just I work on too many projects, and so I'm always multitasking in other areas. But not so good when I'm not a good cook either, so you should know that too. I have many other but
you're honest about it. But no, I will say this: that Native News Online, we are going to embark on a project, multi-year project. We got some funding from the MacArthur Foundation, and we're actually raising more money on cultivating culture and indigenous food sovereignty and native language revitalization. Those are the two components of it. But the indigenous food sovereignty, so we've done some preliminary work. We haven't done a whole lot of reporting on it yet. However, there is a big need, and I'm talking to you, the viewers out there, for our tribes to really get involved with agriculture. I think it's about 20 tribes are taking an active role in agriculture. And you think about there's 574 federally recognized tribes. What an opportunity for Indian country. And it's maybe farmer, because some of us are old enough to remember that Farmers Report on Saturday mornings, and it was this guy would read all the things, and it was like,
Yeah. Yeah.
goodness, that was like kind of boring stuff. At least for me, it was. But when you get out there, and I have to tell you, Sarah, it's nothing like getting that first tomato of the year or the first BLT sandwich of the year from your own garden. It's just it's a wonderful thing. But so to our viewers, stay tuned. We will be embarking on this very shortly, and we just brought up a reporter on board starting next week at Native News Online. So we'll be getting more and more about that, and you'll hear about it. But Sarah, hey, the film was dedicated to Cole Brings Plenty. Now, we know he tragically died over a year ago, just over a year ago, and he's Mo Brings Plenty's nephew. Tell us about his connection to the film.
Yeah. Cole he played the older version, the final version of Takota in the film. So this project would have been one of his last projects, acting projects before he passed. And it was so, his passing was so tragic. And I know it left a lot of different questions for the family out there about justice and what really happened. And, so Cole really touched the hearts of so many of the producers and the filmmakers that were a part of the project. They were just everyone was really heartbroken. And I never got to meet Cole. So, but I could just tell, with him being a young man and having lost a relative of mine that was really young, a male cousin of mine, tragically, when he was 21 in a car accident. I just think, it's a heartbreak that never really goes away. But I was really happy to see that his family received the project really well and thanked us for having him as a part of it. And Candy Brings Plenty, who's a relative of his, shared with me and just said, thank you, Sarah. He was really happy about this project. He told me that he had been a part of a project that involved Native youth and that he was so happy and proud to be a part of it. And so that was really nice to hear because, it was so tragic that when he passed away, we worried about that too, about, okay, how are people going to receive the film knowing that he passed away? But that last scene of him looking at the butterflies, that's always it just always gets me because he plays Takota in the future. Mm-hmm. So it's such a touching moment to see him looking at the butterflies, in the future, and now he's in the spirit world. So, I hope we did him proud and I'm glad his family received the project really well. And I hope that the project does inspire youth to get involved with science and technology. I think it's just so important for us to see young people in those roles. So I'm really proud of that.
Yeah. And how can people see butterflies?
So Butterflies is on YouTube. They can look it up under Matter and Space and Butterflies, and it's available there. We're still doing little social media clips and stuff like that. We'll be doing that for the next month. So I have several interviews that are coming out over social media with the group as well to just talk about Lakota storytelling. And we also, I guess I should mention, you mentioned language. We have language in the film too. And that was really important. So the AI actually uses Lakota language in the film. And we utilized, Lakota dictionaries to come up with that language, to share it and to be able to pronounce words correctly and all of that. So I think, as much as tribes need to be a part of this, I'm also interested in how can AI be a part of preserving culture in the future and preserving our own language? Because I know that what I see on social media from different elders in my community, are worried that, our language isn't really being maybe taught in a way that is being received and passed down and carried on. So I want to know, I was like, well, how can we do it? Is there another way to do it from another perspective? And so, yeah, I think there's lots of possibilities out there. And, I'm just excited to see, what's going to come.
Yeah, and I think you're right. And if AI can play a nice role in that preservation of language, because some of the programs that deal with language and even indigenous food sovereignty are under attack because of the cutbacks by the federal government. And I think that's one more reason why we cannot rely on others to push forward our culture if they do use AI, because we don't like how other people tell our stories. So we have got to be integrally involved as Native people as the development, as get out in front, as we say, about AI. So thank you so much for the film. What other projects are you working on, Sarah?
Well, I just came back from the Santa Fe Native Fashion Week. I attended the SWIA Native Fashion Week just last week. So it was fun to be there on behalf of the Indigenous Fashion Collective. And our fashion collective is it's online. It's a membership-based organization where designers, photographers, models can all sign up for free. It's at indigenousfashioncollective.org. It is a nonprofit. And we're looking forward to announcing our next gala, which will be in LA at the Autry. We don't have anything official, so I'm just going to tease it for now. We are going to announce an official date soon, probably within the next month. But our Indigenous Fashion Collective Gala is sort of what I dubbed the Indigenous Met Gala, and last year was such a fun time, and so it was great to see designers that were a part of our gala last year. Tiara Alicia, she had her show there with SWIA. There were other folks like Kayla Looking Horse, who also had a fashion show there. Patricia Michaels had a fashion show with SWIA. All who were a part of our gala last year. And then so many new designers. They also had a partnership with Vancouver Indigenous Fashion Week. So the producers from Vancouver Indigenous Fashion Week came to SWIA and produced the event. So we had a lot of new Canadian designers that were a part of the mix as well. And I really, the vibe was so different with the Canadians there. I was joking with some of my friends. I was like, oh, it's because they're all so healed. And, they are, though, because they've been working on their healing for 20 years, ever since their Truth and Reconciliation. They got to work on that 20 years ago. So their energy is very different. It's very much a healing and collaborative energy. So I really enjoyed being a part of that. And SWIA has always been such a good collaborator for the Indigenous Fashion Collective. So we look forward to just working with them more and growing more. So it's exciting, but it's to come, Levi. I'll tell you soon, but it is going to be in LA, so we're excited about it.
Well, make sure we get that notice, because I know we published it last year when you had it, and we're always happy to do that. And Sarah, you're outstanding entrepreneur. You always are. I don't know when you have time to sleep. Kevin probably has to. Since you don't cook, I don't know if he cooks for you, but
my kids are better cooks than I am, for sure. But yeah, Kevin's not much of a cook either. I eat a lot of salads and all that stuff. But we're also big proponents of buffalo, just so you know. I do know how to butcher a buffalo, so I do have some skills there and have done that several times. But
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Hey, when I first met you, you working for the Episcopal Church, as I recall. The new Pope. What does he give you hope? I mean, he's talking peace, and I know I'm not Catholic, but I'm not necessarily promoting him, but I kind of like some of the things coming out of his mouth. And he told the journalists a couple of days ago that they need to give voice to those who don't have voices. And that's what we're all about here at Native News Online. So what do you think about the new Pope?
I haven't really got into the new Pope yet. I mean, I haven't really been watching the news or anything, although I'll say that I guess a lot of us did. I'll say I did. I breathed a little bit of a sigh of relief when I heard that a lot of his theology and perspective was very similar to the last Pope. And so I was like, okay, good, because the last Pope, did a lot of really amazing things, and also repudiating the doctrine of discovery and, acknowledging the wrongs of it. So, fingers crossed, and hopefully that, means some action behind those words.
Yeah, and he has denounced those who are trying to worry about deporting people. So I kind of like what I'm hearing from him. So, and that's a whole different thing. Sarah, we hope to have you back soon. And before we go, we like to have fun here at Native News Online. Where you travel all over the place, where do you get your best fry bread?
Oh my gosh. I recently, I do have a TikTok. I think I told you last time that I became this unapologetic auntie early this year. Well, it's expanded to my TikTok. But I look at it as a way to pass down knowledge. We were talking earlier on the call about how we learn things differently and, through your relatives and teachings that you had when you grew up. And so I sort of feel a responsibility to pass down knowledge around Lakota laws. So I have this TikTok. And I was going through the Denver airport and I did a short little video. And mind you, I'm still getting over, my cringe, like being able to be cringe on camera and TikTok, and that they always say that you just be cringy, it's fine. So I did this little video about the fry bread in Denver at Tokabe. It was so good. And I literally, it was my most liked, it still is like my most liked TikTok. And I'm new on TikTok. And I think it's been viewed about 10,000 times, which is a lot for me because I have like 500 followers. But yeah, it was amazing. I was really, really impressed. And then I had
we had Ben on last week's Native Bidaské.
Yeah, I had the Indian taco. I never had an Indian taco.
Concourse A, right, Sarah?
Concourse A. I think it was by 28.
Denver
28.
Airport. Yes.
But that Indian taco was the best Indian taco. It was with bison, and they had like this other sauce that I normally didn't use, but it was spicy and sweet. Hominy. Yeah. So that was definitely like hands down, super surprised to see. And we were waiting because we were flying through Denver quite a bit, Kevin and I. So Kevin was paying attention, and we had actually walked by Tokabe a couple different times in the past few months, like seeing that they were building it and it was coming, and then finally it was there. So we finally got to eat the fry bread there. And I really liked it. It was good.
Thank you. And to our viewers, thank you for tuning in. Chimigwich to tune in another episode of Native Bidaské. And always a pleasure to have Sarah Eagleheart on Native Bidaské. She's such an outstanding person and is so winner of 2 Emmys and all that good stuff. So follow her on TikTok. I guess I just learned that myself. So we'll be back next week with another episode of Native Bidaské. And I like to tell you, elders, take care of those young ones, give them hugs, show them all kinds of love, and young ones, take care of those elders. They are our treasures, and we need to just love on our elders. So Chimigwich, we'll see you next week.
Thank you for joining us. If you value our warrior journalism for Indian country, please consider supporting our work by scanning the QR code or visiting the link below. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on social media,